On May 8, 2025, American Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was elected the new Pope of the Catholic Church, taking the name Leo XIV. Born in Chicago in 1955, Prevost is of French, Italian, and Spanish descent and is noted for his academic training in mathematics, philosophy, and theology, as well as his fluency in multiple languages. He was ordained a priest at age 26 and carried out important missionary work in Peru, serving as Bishop of Chiclayo from 2014 until his appointment to the Vatican in January 2025 by Pope Francis. Prior to his election as Pope, he served as prefect of the dicastery for bishops. His leadership will focus on continuing the transparency and anti-sexual abuse reforms championed by his predecessor, as well as addressing domestic challenges such as the vocations crisis and growing secularization. The choice of his name, Leo XIV, is a tribute to Leo XIII and his encyclical Rerum Novarum, promoting social justice. His career represents hope for vulnerable sectors of society and a reaffirmation of the Church's role in defending human dignity. His figure symbolizes not only spiritual renewal, but also a strong commitment to memory, truth, and fundamental rights in times of authoritarian threats. In his first speech, he called for peace, inclusion, and justice, emotionally recalling his predecessor and also addressing his Peruvian diocese. The official portrait of the new Pope Leo XIV, the 69-year-old American Robert Francis Prevost, who was elected on May 8, 2025. In the image, he appears with a slight smile, dressed in the white papal habit and a golden pectoral cross containing relics of St. Augustine and St. Monica in honor of the Augustinian order to which he belongs. The portrait includes his Latin signature Leo PP, Pontifex Pontificum, and his papal coat of arms, with Marian and Augustinian symbolism. The cross he carries also houses relics of other important religious figures: Blessed Anselmo Polanco, the servant of God, Giuseppe Bartolomeo Menocchio, and St. Thomas of Villanova, reflecting his devotion and pastoral mission. The election of Leo XIV has sparked global enthusiasm not only for his religious role, but also for his record of commitment to human rights, particularly remembered for his work in Peru during the 1990s. As a bishop in that country, Robert Francis Prevost publicly denounced human rights violations under the regime of Alberto Fujimori and strongly opposed the reintroduction of the death penalty. His connection with key figures such as Father Hubert Lanciers, known for freeing unjustly convicted prisoners, and his support for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission during the democratic transition consolidate his ethical and pastoral character. On May 30th, 1862, Don Bosco shared with his young people a dream he had had a few days earlier. In it, a ship was about to sink due to the attacks it was receiving from its enemies, but the Pope guided it between two columns that emerged from the sea. The two saving columns, I believe, are the devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Most Holy Sacrament of the Eucharist. Blessed Michael Rua made no reference to the fallen and dead Pope, and St. John Bosco said nothing about this matter either. He only added, "You have said it well." One expression would need to be corrected. The ships of the enemies are persecutions. Difficult days are preparing for the Church. What has happened so far is almost nothing compared to what must happen. The Marian apparitions of Medjugorje, also called Our Lady of Medjugorje, Croatian Medjugorska Gospa, Queen of Peace, Croatian Kraljica Mira, and Mother of the Redeemer, Croatian Majka Otkupiteljica, are a series of apparitions of the Virgin Mary that began on 24th of June 1981 in Medjugorje. On the evening of Wednesday, June 24, 1981, 15-year-old Ivanka Ivankovic, born June 21, 1966, and 16-year-old Mirjana Dragicevic, born March 18, 1965, were walking along the road from Bijakovici to Čilići and reported that they had seen a luminous silhouette on Mount Podbrdo. While walking at the foot of Mount Podberdo at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they had seen a female figure in a small cloud. Frightened, the two girls ran away and returned to the village. The next day, June 25, 1981, the girls climbed the hill again, accompanied by Maria Pavlovich, Mirjana Dragicevic's cousin, and 10-year-old Yakov Cholo, born March 6, 1971, and met up with 16-year-old Ivan Dragicevich, born May 25, 1965, who had gone another way. The group of 6 visionaries was thus finally constituted. The Virgin Mary appeared again to the entire group and had a brief conversation with Ivanka Ivankovich about her mother, who had disappeared a few months earlier. On May 8th, the new pope was announced. Leo Vartutis, formerly known as Robert Francis Prevost, a Chicago-born Augustinian with ties to Peru and close to Pope Francis. Aged 69, he is described as reserved, modest, and intellectual. During his official presentation, he drew attention for wearing a watch that was affordable for all budgets, moving away from luxury brands like Rolex or Tag Heuer, a common tradition among international leaders. Instead, he opted for a Swiss sports watch by Wenger, the Military Ranger model. Manufactured in the 1990s, this durable quartz watch, with a deep red bezel, nicknamed Cardinal Red, originally costing less than €150 and is no longer sold. This choice reflects the new pontiff's intention to maintain a simple lifestyle, similar to that of his predecessor Francis I, who wore a Casio MQ-24 7B2 for approximately €50. This action reinforces his image of humility and closeness to the people. The Spanish government has sent a letter to the Vatican requesting an audience between Pope Leo XIV and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. The same letter extends an invitation to the pontiff to make an official visit to Spain. This action comes on the eve of the Mass to inaugurate Leo XIV's pontificate, scheduled for next Sunday, which will be attended by more than 150 international delegations. The Spanish delegation will be led by the King and Queen, as they were at Pope Francis's funeral on April 26. Pedro Sanchez will not participate in the ceremony, being represented by the first Vice President, Maria Jesus Montero, and the Minister of the Presidency, Justice and Parliamentary Relations, Felix Bolaños, responsible for relations with the Vatican. The leader of the Popular Party, Alberto Núñez Feijóo, will also be part of the delegation. During the Mass, the new pope will receive the fisherman's ring and the pallium, symbols of papal power. On May 8, 2025, Robert Francis Prevost was elected pope by the Vatican conclave, taking the name Leo XIV. He is the first pope born in the United States and with Peruvian nationality, as well as the first pontiff belonging to the Order of St. Augustine. His election sparked great celebration in Chiclayo, Peru, where he carried out outstanding pastoral work. Leo XIV arrived in Peru after his ordination and carried out his ecclesiastical mission in several cities, especially Chiclayo, where he was a priest, seminary professor, and organizer of parish communities. In 2014, he was appointed Bishop of Chiclayo by Pope Francis, consolidating his message: "Beloved children of light, remain attentive. Something profound will now be revealed. It is a time of vigilance, a time of ardent faith." A name has begun to resonate in the halls of the Vatican, a name that is not common, that is not accidental: Leo. For many, it may seem like a coincidence. For those with spiritual ears, it may be a heavenly sign. What does this new lion that appears in the heart of Catholicism truly represent? And what echoes does it evoke in the ancient warnings of heaven? Since the earliest centuries of Christianity, the lion has been a symbol of strength, authority, and spiritual protection. But not just any strength, rather a strength that emanates from the Spirit of God. In the Holy Scriptures, the Lion of Judah represents the kingship of Christ, the supremacy of the Messiah. But when that symbol appears inside the Vatican, the seat of spiritual power on earth, we must open our inner eyes. This is not the first time the name Leo has entered ecclesiastical history. Popes have borne this name: Leo I, known as the Great, who faced Attila the Hun unarmed, relying solely on divine authority, and Leo III, who received visions of the battle between heaven and hell, which led him to compose the prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel. Every time a Leo has emerged in the church, momentous events have followed, but there is something deeper, more mystical, that connects this name with even more ancient celestial revelations. In Marian messages, especially those of Fatima, Garabandal, and Akita, there are constant references to the struggle between light and darkness, between true shepherds and wolves in disguise. Mary, in her tenderness, warns but also announces. Her words echo prophecies that allude to a time when a defender would emerge, a protector of the faith, a living symbol of spiritual resistance. Is not the lion, perhaps, a protector? Let us recall the prophetic dream of St. John Bosco. In one of his most striking visions, he saw the church as a great ship tossed by storms and surrounded by enemies. But in the midst of the battle, two columns emerged. One bearing the Eucharist, the other Mary, help of Christians. And in another, less sighted but deeply symbolic vision, Bosch describes the appearance of a lion defending the flock from infiltrating wolves. A lion that roared not with violence, but with divine authority. Is it possible that this new lion in the Vatican is a manifestation of that symbol that heaven promised? In St. Hildegard's visions, the lion appears as the image of the messenger who roars against corruption within the temple. And let us not forget St. Malachi and his famous prophecy of the popes, which speaks of an end time in which a firm, strong guide, different from those who came before, would emerge, destined to preserve the faith amidst the great apostasy. Could this lion be an instrument of restoration? A figure chosen by heaven to confront the spiritual chaos looming over humanity? The symbolism doesn't end there. In the book of Revelation, the lion also appears as one of the four creatures surrounding God's throne. It represents Mark, the evangelist of action, but it also represents vigilance, inner fire, and urgency. In times when faith grows cold, the Lion of Heaven roars to awaken those who are asleep. If this lion isn't a coincidence, then it's a sign. And if it is a sign, it's a call to wake up, to turn our eyes to heaven, to prepare for the fulfillment of what many prophets have foretold for centuries. And now I want to invite you to reflect with me. Do you believe this new Leo in the Vatican is a simple coincidence or a prophetic confirmation? Write in the comments, "I believe God is speaking." Beloved children, in this decisive hour, I invite you to open your heart. The voice of the Almighty cries out for those who still believe in the impossible of God. There is a prophecy that has spanned the centuries, carrying such immense spiritual weight that when read, it provokes fear and expectation. It is the prophecy of Saint Malachi, a mystery that has troubled the hearts of the faithful and scholars since the Middle Ages. It is a list with enigmatic descriptions of the popes who would guide the Catholic Church until the end of time. But what truly impacts us today is what is found at the end of that list, the figure of a final pontiff, identified as Petrus Romanus, or as some have interpreted it, Leo XIV, the shepherd who will lead among the ruins. Throughout the centuries, this prophecy has been considered a veiled sign from heaven, a sequence of 112 mottos, each corresponding to a pope, began in Celestine II in 1143. Each motto, brief and symbolic, seems to capture aspects of the name, coat of arms, or events of the pontificate described. Many believe that Saint Malachi received this revelation directly from God during a pilgrimage to Rome, and the message was so powerful that he secretly recorded it. But the most impressive thing is that we've reached the end of the list. The last motto doesn't contain a number. Instead, a complete text appears, not different from the previous ones. During the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, Peter the Roman will reign, who will shepherd the sheep amid many tribulations. After this, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people. End. An apocalyptic description, a portent that mixes images of destruction, judgment, and prophetic leadership in the last days of humanity. Who then will this last pope be? Many believe we're already living in the final days, and that Leo XIV, not yet publicly revealed, will be the final pontiff. Scholars associate his figure with a man who will emerge in a scenario of global chaos, where wars, economic collapse, and religious persecution will mark the final era of the Church on earth. He will be known for his steadfastness amidst ruin, a true shepherd amid the spiritual and moral rubble of a civilization in decline. The tension increases when we realize that recent popes have already amazingly lived up to the prophecy's previous mottos. For example, the motto De Labore Solis was attributed to John Paul II, who was born during a solar eclipse. Gloria Olivae to Benedict XVI, who adopted the name of an order associated with the olive tree. And now, is the next pope already being secretly prepared? The world is on the brink of great revelations. Wars, earthquakes, pandemics, and crises of faith are merely the prelude. The figure of Leo XIV, the last shepherd, emerges as a symbol of prophetic resistance amid the collapse of religious and political structures. He will not be a pope like any other. He will come with the weight of the ultimate mission, charged with preserving the faithful flock amidst persecutions never before seen. A time when true faith will be tested like gold in the fire. Will this pope be the Roman Peter of prophecy? Many theologians affirm that he will be. The symbolism is clear. Peter, the first pope, returns at the end as a spiritual figure who closes the cycle begun by Christ. Roman, not only because of his connection to Rome, but also as the final guardian of the apostolic tradition. The ruins among which he will shepherd symbolize a world devastated by disbelief, apostasy, and the advance of a new order that will attempt to silence the voice of the Church. This is not simply a theory. We are speaking of a spiritual warning that calls for vigilance. Jesus himself warned, "There will be great signs in heaven and on earth." We are already seeing those signs. The earth groans, nature rebels. People are in conflict, and truth is being relativized. In this scenario of growing darkness, the last pope will emerge as a beacon, but also as a sign that time is running out. Children of light, we must be vigilant. The time of spiritual comfort is over. Leo XIV will bring with him the spirit of Elijah, the burden of Moses, the mission of the martyrs. He will not be acclaimed by the world, but persecuted. His leadership will not be distinguished by popularity, but by suffering. And it is in that suffering that God will seal the final phase of his militant church on earth. Many will ask, why would God allow so much tribulation for his children? Because the time of harvest has arrived. The lukewarm will be vomited out, the faithful will be sealed, the chosen will be prepared. The mission of the last pope will be to be the shepherd of separation, the one who leads the true flock toward the encounter with the eternal judge. His words will be harsh, his decisions prophetic, his life a continual sacrifice. We are about to experience the convergence of the prophecies of Fatima, the visions of Padre Pio, the secrets of La Salette, and the list of Saint Malachy. Everything points to a time that can no longer be ignored. Leo XIV will be the one who walks on hot coals without getting burned, the one who holds the torch of truth when all lights have been extinguished. Prophecy was not given to us to provoke panic, but to prepare the spirit. It is a time of repentance, of consecration, of fasting, of intense search for the truth of Christ. Leo XIV may already be among us, silent, watching, awaiting the hour of the Almighty. And when that hour arrives, there will be no more room for spiritual neutrality. You are either with the light or you are against it. Now I invite you to leave a comment. Do you think Leo XIV is already being loved? Beloved of the Lord, listen with reverence. What you are about to read is not a simple political analysis, nor an anecdotal story. It is a prophetic echo that pierces the heart of the times. Because the election of Pope Leo XIV was not a coincidence. It was a strategic move from heaven, wrapped in mystery and executed under the astonishment of the earth. The morning of the conclave was like so many others in the history of the Church, uncertain, dense, and filled with speculation. But a different feeling hung in the air, as if the invisible were breathing among the gathered cardinals. When the white smoke rose to the sky and the name of Leo XIV was proclaimed, a shudder ran not only through St. Peter's Square, but also through the spiritual depths of millions. Who was he? What voice rose from the unknown to guide the flock? Almost no faithful knew him, a retired cardinal, rarely mentioned in powerful circles, but revered by few as a man of intense prayer, long silences, and disturbing visions. His hands, aged by years of contemplative retreat, were now called to hold the helm of the bark of Peter. Many wondered, why him? What set him apart from so many others with brilliant and diplomatic careers? The answer came not in official announcements, but in the whispers of the Spirit. Leo XIV was chosen, not because of visible merits, but because of a silent consecration hidden from the eyes of the world, but known in heaven. In his first words from the apostolic balcony, there was no euphoria, no empty words. Just a deep sigh, a compassionate look on the wounded world, and a phrase that moved hearts: do not fear the crucible, the purification begins today. That day, many knew this would be no ordinary papacy. The international press pounced with questions. His past, though largely unknown, began to emerge like a fabric embroidered by the supernatural. Rumors of hidden stigmata, discreet visits to sites of Marian apparitions, handwritten letters with warnings that came true years later. Some called him the Cardinal of Silence, others the Mystic of the Alps. But it was his first gesture as Pope that sealed his image in the spiritual consciousness of millions. Before delivering his first homily, he walked alone, without protocol, to a ruined church on the outskirts of Rome. There, kneeling on dusty rubble, he prayed for a full hour for the nations. He said nothing. He didn't allow cameras. But eyewitnesses reported feeling a tremor in the air. Leo XIV did not seek prominence. He spoke little, but each word was like a chisel on stone. In his speeches, veiled warnings emerged about times to come, about purification, apostasy, and spiritual renewal. The smoke of the enemy has already entered, but the wind of the Spirit will sweep it away, he said in one of his most talked-about messages. His style was disconcerting. He didn't align himself with ideologies. He didn't please crowds. But his mere presence provoked introspection. He brought ancient documents on spiritual discernment out of oblivion. He reopened research into forgotten miracles. And above all, he insisted on one word: awakening. Awakening to the truth, to the mission, to the urgency of the end times. Social media was divided. While some saw him as a prophet in white, others called him retrograde, anachronistic, and overly spiritual. But he didn't respond. He simply continued his mission with supernatural calm. He said he had heard a guiding phrase in prayer: "Do not fear the darkness, for it was I who lit your lamp." There were many accounts of sudden conversions after hearing his homilies. In a world fragmented by noise, Leo XIV spoke with the authority of silence. Protestant pastors, Muslim leaders, and Jewish rabbis sought him out privately, not because of doctrinal disagreements, but because there was something different in his presence. And so, day after day, the unexpected Pope began to be recognized as a prophetic voice for this generation, not because of his titles, but because of the weight of the invisible that surrounded him. In his private audiences, according to some attendees, his eyes seemed to pierce souls. He didn't judge, but he made people tremble. He didn't impose, but he set destinies. Some claim that on one of his loneliest nights, he was seen weeping over a world map. His tears, they say, fell on conflict zones as if he knew something big was coming. In his personal diaries discovered years later, a phrase was repeated like a divine echo. "I am here for a short time, but the fire will remain lit. Leo XIV is still alive, but he's already a legend." For many, his pontificate was a sign from heaven, an anomaly in the natural flow of history, a prophetic disruption meant to prepare the church for a time of decisions. His election wasn't just surprising, it was providential. Now tell me in the comments, do you think Leo XIV was a prophetic chosen one for the times we live in? What signs do you see in his papacy that could mark a before and after in the history of faith? Or was he secretly prepared to guide amid the spiritual ruins of the world? Connection with messages from Our Lady in Medjugorje and Fatima. Spiritual interpretation of the lion as a symbol of God's judgment and justice. Dear children of the Most High, listen carefully to this heavenly word that transcends time and continents. Today, heaven reveals to us a mystery hidden among ancient prophecies, recent visions, and eternal symbols. Mary and the lion. Two figures who seemingly do not intersect, but who in spirit form a powerful, urgent, and decisive message for the days we live in. At Fatima, the Mother of God descended with a call to conversion, prayer, and penance. A call that is repeated with even more urgent tones in Medjugorje, where Our Lady cries out day after day to a world that has lost its way. Her messages are not religious trappings, they are prophetic warnings. She does not come to reassure us with sweet words, but to shake our souls with eternal truths. Her voice is gentle, yet firm as a sword. Her gaze is loving, but does not hide the gravity of what heaven sees. And the Lion of Judah, the symbol of the victorious Messiah, he who comes not as a lamb, but as a judge. Many speak of God's love, but few are prepared for his justice. In Scripture, the lion represents the unwavering power of divine judgment, the justice that does not compromise with sin, the royalty that demands obedience. Revelation 5:5 says, "Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has conquered." This lion does not roar in vain. His roar heralds the end of time, the day of reckoning, the glorious dawn for the faithful and the feared one for the rebels. Now listen carefully, Mary and the lion do not contradict each other. They complement each other. Mary is the mother of mercy. The lion is the king of justice. She prays for us. He comes to judge us. In her messages, Mary prepares us for that inevitable encounter. She does not want her children to be lost. That is why she cries, why she weeps, why she appears in remote places to children, to simple people, to willing hearts. But the time of mercy has a limit. And when that time is over, the lion's roar will be heard throughout the earth. Medjugorje is not just a place of peace, it's a spiritual training ground. The Queen of Peace speaks of conversion, fasting, and prayer, but she also speaks of the secrets that have yet to be revealed. 10 secrets kept like prophetic seals that will be opened when God so desires. And what happens when a seal is opened? In the apocalypse, each seal unleashes judgment. Do you understand? Mary is preparing the world for the day of roaring. When those secrets are revealed, there will be no turning back. It will be the hour of the lion. Fatima announced a war, an apostasy, and the punishment that would come if the world did not repent. Medjugorje is the continuation, but also the final call. Meanwhile, the lion walks, the lion watches. The lion waits for the moment to roar, and its roar will be justice. The modern world has domesticated the image of Jesus. They see him as a gentle teacher, as an ever-forgiving friend. But they forget that he is also a consuming fire. They forget that he will come with eyes like a flame of fire and with a sword coming out of his mouth. The Lion of Judah doesn't play. The Lion of Judah doesn't negotiate. The Lion of Judah comes to establish his kingdom with power. And in the midst of this divine tension, Mary intercedes. It's like at Cana. She anticipates divine intervention. It's like in the Apocalypse, when she appears crowned with 12 stars, fighting the dragon. She knows what's coming, and so she implores humanity to wake up, to confess, to return to God, to fast, to pray, to embrace the cross. Don't you see? Every Marian message is a loving warning, but also an announcement that the Lion is near. Mary and the Lion, mercy and justice, love and truth, intercession and judgment. You can't choose just one. You must embrace both. Because the gospel isn't just consolation, it's also confrontation. And heaven's messages aren't designed for your comfort, but for your salvation. Now close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, are you ready to see the Lion? Or have you only known the Lamb? Are you listening to Mary's voice, or are you ignoring her tears? This is the time to take a stand. There is no more neutrality. You are either with heaven or you are outside the kingdom. The Lion's roar has been heard throughout history, in earthquakes, in wars, in spiritual chaos, in the growing apostasy within the church itself. All of this is not mere news. It is a sign from heaven, signs that the Lion is approaching, and when the Lion roars, the nations tremble. Mary is shouting from heaven, "Get ready, children, because the great and terrible day of the Lord is coming." And are we still asleep? God doesn't want you to fear without reason, but He does want you to fear wisely. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and that holy fear is what Mary wants to sow in our hearts, because only those who fear the Lion are saved by the Lamb, and only those who listen to the Mother will be protected from judgment. Are you listening to this voice, or are you only interested in miracles and not in calls to change? Today is the day to wake up. Today is the day to look into Mary's eyes and say, "Yes, Mother, I accept your call. I want to be prepared. I want to be faithful. I want to hear the Lion's roar and not fear." Now I ask you, from the depths of my spirit, what do you think the Lion of Judah represents in these end times? Leave it in the comments. Your voice can awaken others. Beloved of the Lord, before reading further, take a deep breath. What you are about to discover is not fiction, nor a decorated story. It is a real fact, hidden for years, silenced by disbelief, but which today resurfaces with force because the time has come. This is the story of a religious woman who saw what few could imagine, and whose testimony announces a prophetic hour for the entire world. In 1994, in a convent hidden in the mountains of Colombia, a contemplative nun, known as Sister Mariana, received a vision so powerful, so unusual, that even her superiors called it a mystical illusion and tried to make her forget it. But what she saw didn't disappear. It remained imprinted on her soul with eternal fire. That vision included a pope, but no ordinary pope. He was a man with eyes of fire and a white lion at his side, like a heavenly sentinel. These words, spoken with trembling and tears by the nun, were recorded in a personal notebook that was later confiscated by church authorities. For years, no one spoke of the matter again. Sister Mariana was transferred to another convent in the south of the country under stricter vows of silence, and her name practically disappeared from the public life of the church. But among the sisters who lived with her, the story never died. She saw things, and she wept when she spoke of that pope. She said his face was fire and justice, that his presence divided light from darkness, recalls an elderly sister who still keeps handwritten copies of the original testimony. The nun hadn't watched television, hadn't read modern apocalyptic prophecies, or was familiar with concepts of eschatological interpretation, but she described in great detail a scene that resonates today with the name of Leo XIV, the current supreme pontiff, who has been called by some the Pope of Judgment. In her vision, Sister Mariana saw the Pope with blood stained, not his own, but that of the innocent. Behind him, a crowd wept, while a minority glared at him with hatred. He had fire in his eyes, a fire that didn't burn but did reveal, she said. The image of the white lion was even more disturbing. The nun described it as a lion that didn't roar, but whose gaze made mountains tremble. In her vision, this lion protected the Pope in the midst of a great spiritual war. It wasn't a physical war, but a battle between truth and lies, between purity and corruption within the church itself. In her words, the lion didn't fight with claws, he fought with presence. Wherever he stood, falsehood fell, the hidden was revealed, and the impure was vomited from the altars. For more than 20 years, this story remained barely a whisper among cloistered nuns. But in 2023, when the name of Leo XIV began to circulate prophetically as an unwavering reformer, one of the few living sisters who knew Sister Mariana wrote an anonymous letter addressed to Rome. That letter contained parts of the original testimony, including hand-drawn illustrations of the Pope with fiery eyes. The letter was intercepted, but fragments reached lay Catholics who today guard this revelation as an urgent message for these times. And this is where the supernatural connects with current reality. Since his election, Leo XIV has been a divisive figure. Some accuse him of being too harsh. Others call him the last beacon of holiness. But the coincidences with Sister Mariana's vision are chilling. In a recent homily, Leo XIV himself declared, "The fire that burns in my eyes is not human anger, it is divine zeal. Judgment begins with the house of God." How could Sister Mariana have predicted something like this almost 30 years earlier? Who revealed such exact details to her? Some claim that Sister Mariana was touched by the spirit of prophecy, the same spirit that has accompanied mystics and saints throughout history. Others believe she simply harbored an unusual spiritual sensitivity. But no one can deny that what she saw is before our eyes today, being fulfilled step by step. The main message of his vision was not one of condemnation, but of purification. God does not want to destroy, he wants to cleanse. But first, he must reveal what is filthy, he wrote on a loose sheet of paper found among his few personal belongings. The Pope with eyes of fire is sent not to please, but to expose. Not to entertain, but to awaken. These words, which seem taken from a biblical prophecy, resonate loudly with each new scandal, each revelation of hidden sin, each act of courage the Pope has taken since his arrival on the throne of Peter. Many may ask, what should we do with this information? The answer lies in the vision itself. Pray, be vigilant, purify. There is no time to lose. The hour is grave, and the voice of heaven is speaking through these hidden witnesses. Sister Mariana was not famous. She was not beatified. She did not found orders or write books, but her obedient silence, her faithfully guarded vision, and her hidden suffering become today a prophetic echo that resonates throughout the world. Now the big question remains for you. Do you think we're seeing the fulfillment of that vision? What do you think of this connection between Sister Mariana and Leo XIV? Write in the comments. Do you believe Sister Mariana was a prophet sent by God? Are we living in the times of the Pope with eyes of fire? Your opinion could awaken others. Beloved of the Lord, pay attention to this message that resonates today from heaven to earth. Something great is about to happen, and you have been chosen to heed this warning. We live in times when spiritual eyes must be open. The curtains that hide eternal plans are beginning to move. On the throne of Peter, the figure of Leo XIV emerges as a prophetic sign for many. His words, gestures, and postures do not go unnoticed by those who watch the times and signs. But what comes after him? Some claim that Leo XIV represents the last bastion of orthodoxy, the last to raise a shield against the great apostasy. Will he be the last faithful shepherd, before the wolf takes the flock. Eschatological theories and interpretations of the prophecies of Fatima, of Saint Malachy, and of so many mystics point to a time of rupture, where what seemed eternal will be shaken, where what was certain will become uncertain. The name Leo, loaded with symbolism, refers to the lion of the tribe of Judah, but also to strength, combat, and royalty. 14th, the number 14, brings to mind divine judgments, like the 14 stations of the cross, a path of pain and glory. Will this pope be the last lion before the silence, before the false shepherd occupies the sacred seat? In the most intimate circles of spiritual interpreters, there is talk of a time after Leo XIV, when the church will be divided. One part will immerse itself in adapting to the world and the new moral order. Another part, persecuted, silenced, will remain faithful, hidden in the spiritual deserts. What is coming will not only be a theological crisis, but a redefinition of the sacred. And therein lies danger, because when man attempts to recreate God in his own image, judgment knocks at the door. The prophet Daniel already warned about the one who would desecrate the holy place, change times and the law. John, in the book of Revelation, saw the great harlot drunk with the blood of the saints. Is this the approaching time? Will the impostor come after Leo XIV, the charismatic leader, beloved by all, but secretly leading us to the abyss? The prophecy of Saint Malachy gives us a catalogue of popes. According to many interpreters, Leo XIV would be the penultimate. After him would come Petrus Romanus, the Peter of the end times, a symbolic name for the one who will see Rome burn, who will shepherd among the ruins, who will witness the final persecution. This is not sensationalism, but a heavenly warning. The time is coming. Our Lady's words at La Salette and Fatima also point to this time. Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Many listened, few believed. And among those few, there is a voice today crying out, "Prepare yourselves." What comes after Leo XIV will not just be a new pope, it will be the fulfillment of a series of events prophesied for centuries. The heavens are in motion. There is turmoil in the celestial realms. A thin line separates the time of mercy from the time of judgment. And Leo XIV, perhaps unknowingly, is the last sign of stability before the great storm. Silent prophets, hidden in prayer, receive visions of empty churches, profaned sacraments, and a faith reduced to a theater. But they also see lights in the valleys, faithful remnants, hidden communities that endure like lamps in the darkness. You who hear this message, do not ignore the sign. The history of salvation has always been marked by figures who foreshadow chaos. John the Baptist prepared the way for the Lord, but he also announced judgment. Leo XIV may be this liminal figure, this point between two eras. His end will mark the beginning of what many call the Great Purification. It will be a time when truth will be confused with hatred, when charity will be used to justify error, when the prophetic voice will be silenced by human laws. And when that happens, those who still believe will have to decide, follow the crowd or stand firm, even without visible structures. Leo XIV will be remembered not only for his words, but for being the last candle before the global spiritual blackout. It's not about fear, but about preparation. Those who listen to heaven understand we are no longer in a time of distraction. After Leo XIV, the stage is set for the entry of the great peacemaker, the one who will bring humane solutions, but will demand the renunciation of the Lamb. And then, those who are not sealed will fall into the deception of the angel of light. Therefore, it is urgent to watch, pray, and discern. Something is closing. The current dispensation is facing an unprecedented spiritual change. The visible church will undergo a painful pruning, and the remnant, small, hidden, and despised, will be the faithful bride awaiting the bridegroom's return. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Leo XIV is the last shield before chaos? Write in the comments, I am awake, I am prepared. When Leo XIV emerged from the white smoke, many expected continuity, but the heavens had another plan. In just 100 days, the new pontiff unleashed acts that not only divided the Roman Curia, but also opened prophetic portals above Rome and the world. This is not just an account of ecclesiastical decisions, it is a heavenly summons to discern the signs of the times. Because something is moving in the spiritual world, and you need to know about it. From the first day of his pontificate, Leo XIV rejected the traditional red shoes. He declared, "Rome no longer walks on earthly glory, but on burning coals." This phrase, considered enigmatic by many, was interpreted by visionaries as the fulfillment of an ancient vision of Anna Maria Taigi about a pope who would be the last before the great purification. On his second Sunday as pontiff, during the Angelus, he spoke not only of peace, but of imminent war. His words thundered, "The smoke of war is no longer a distant threat. It is already entering through the windows of the Vatican." He didn't name countries, but his words resonated as a warning against the global escalation and the collapse of unholy alliances between nations and hidden powers. 7 days later, he surprised everyone again by visiting without formal notice a coastal area ravaged by flooding. There he declared, "The sea returns to the earth what humanity denied to heaven." And these words were seen as a parallel to the prophecy of La Salette, which states that nature cries out for justice. But the most shocking thing happened on the 33rd day of his pontificate, a number laden with Christian symbolism. In a speech broadcast worldwide, Leo XIV declared that the veil will be lifted from Rome. Silence, no explanation, no follow-up. The phrase fell like a thunderbolt in the heart of the church. For some, a metaphor for administrative transparency. For others, a direct reference to the revelation of something hidden for centuries, perhaps the arrival of internal apostasy, or even the manifestation of the man of lawlessness of 2 Thessalonians. Within the Curia, whispers multiplied. Rumors suggest that Leo XIV had access to sealed documents from the third secret of Fatima and was being pressured to remain silent. Unconfirmed sources indicate that he had read hidden fragments that speak of a betrayal at the central altar and of a night when the bells of Rome will fall silent forever. On the 45th day of the Mass, in a seemingly ordinary ceremony, Leo XIV ordered the temporary closure of several basilicas for spiritual purification and solemn exorcism. Never before had a pontiff used such language in public. The term solemn exorcism had not been mentioned since the time of Leo XIII. Could Leo XIV, with such a similar name, be a prophetic echo of the Pope who also had visions of Satan challenging the Church? On the 100th day, during a Eucharistic celebration, the Pope dressed in absolute black, no gold, no white, no purple, just black, as a sign of mourning. At the end of the celebration, he spoke in a grave tone, "The bride of Christ will be purified not with honors, but with tears." This statement caused a stir. Several bishops questioned whether he was announcing a future persecution of the Church, an internal purge, or both. Until now, Leo XIV has avoided long speeches, but his every word has become a spiritual code. He doesn't speak like a diplomat, he speaks like a seer. And this has disturbed both the secular world and some members of the clergy. It's not just a new papal style, it's a new prophetic atmosphere. Leo XIV seems to know he's walking a fine line between a time of grace and a time of judgment. Many are asking, will he be the last before the collapse, or the first of a prophetic renewal within the Church? Among analysts and believers, the conviction is growing that we are experiencing the opening of a seal, a time when the mask of false peace will be torn away and the truth will be proclaimed, even if it means bloodshed. Leo XIV did not come to please. He came to divide, like the sword Christ spoke of, and the question that remains is, who will be able to discern what is to come? Now I want to hear from you. What do you think "the veil will be lifted from Rome" means? Write it in the comments and share your prophetic vision. Beloved children, in this decisive hour, I invite you to open your heart. The voice of the Almighty cries out for those who still believe in God's impossible. We are living in days marked by clear signs from heaven. These are no longer mere coincidences, but a divine cry that sweeps the earth, seeking hearts willing to listen and obey. Since the election of the current pontiff, a new spiritual breath has begun to move the church. Marian initiatives are emerging like burning flames on different continents, rekindling the flame of intercession and spiritual vigilance. Heaven is summoning an army of intercessors. The Virgin Mary, in her many apparitions, has warned of the urgency of prayer, penance, and conversion. Recent messages speak of times of purification, of imminent judgment, but also of an unprecedented outpouring of mercy for those who take refuge under her mantle. In Medjugorje, Fatima, Garabandal, and other holy places, the echoes of the prophecies unite in a single call: pray, pray, pray. Following the papal election, a wave of Marian movements has intensified. Spontaneous prayer groups have sprung up in homes, churches, and even online. Lay people and consecrated people have joined together in continuous novenas, worldwide rosaries, and all-night vigils. In countries like Brazil, Mexico, the Philippines, and Italy, crowds have gathered, crying out for divine intervention. There is a collective perception that we are going through a prophetic time, and the response of the faithful is a total surrender at the altar of God. This spiritual response is not driven solely by fear, but by a profound recognition that without God, chaos sets in. Families are praying together again, young people are surrendering to the call, priests are rekindling the anointing of confession and perpetual adoration. Silent churches are once again resounding with praise, and the deserts of faith are blossoming with new calls. The Marian initiatives following the election have a distinctive characteristic: urgency and unity. Various apparitions and messages emphasize that we are in the time of final graces. The Virgin herself, in her messages, appeals to the Holy Rosary as a decisive weapon, and the faithful are listening. Movements such as the Army of Mary, Militia of the Immaculate, and Children of Light organize spiritual warfare retreats, mass consecrations, and weekly votive masses. It's not just an external devotion. There's an inner revival underway. Testimonies of healing, deliverance, and conversion are multiplying. People who had been away for years are returning to the church, driven by dreams, visions, or supernatural experiences. Many report hearing an inner voice insisting, "It's time to return." Others receive signs such as tears when they touch the rosary, inexplicable impulses to fast or pray in the early morning. Everything points to a mass spiritual preparation. The spiritual atmosphere is charged. Contemporary prophets, renowned for their holiness and discernment, warn that the world is in transition, a spiritual transition where the weeds and the wheat are being separated. Prayer, in this context, is not just a devotional practice, but a weapon of war. Each Hail Mary recited with faith is an arrow launched against the darkness. Each completed rosary is a shield raised on behalf of the nations. The response of the faithful has also had a social impact. Entire cities have reported a decrease in violence following intense Marian campaigns. Schools and universities are opening spaces for prayer groups. Businesses and hospitals are inviting priests for celebrations and blessings. The supernatural is invading the natural, and this is the fruit of intercessors standing in the gap, day and night, crying out for mercy. The urgent prayer God asks for is not random. There is a heavenly plan in progress. And every faithful person who rises in fasting, every tear shed in intercession, every nightly praise carries the weight of eternity. We are participating in a divine plan, and there is no room for indifference. The signs are clear. wars, natural disasters, spiritual crises, but there are also signs of grace, children with prophetic gifts, Eucharistic miracles, impossible family reconciliations. We are in a time of definitive spiritual decisions. The heavens are open, but the window will not remain open forever. We must act now. The call is for the watchful, for those sensitive to the Spirit. God is sealing intercessors with fire. He is raising up sentinels of the dawn, ordinary people with an extraordinary mission to sustain the world in prayer. The Blessed Virgin continues to walk among us. Her eyes are upon those who listen to her. In each apparition, she insistently repeats, "Pray with your heart." That is the secret. It is not the mechanical multiplication of words, but the sincere pouring out of one's soul before the Almighty. Heaven responds to broken hearts, not to empty prayers. This prophetic awakening cannot be wasted. The hour of decision has arrived. God is recruiting spiritual warriors who are undeterred by the darkness, men and women who raise their hands and cry out until the heavens open, sons and daughters who recognize that only a bent knee can change destinies. And you? Have you heard that inner call yet? Have you felt something greater is moving? Are you willing to be one of those end-time intercessors? God doesn't need multitudes. He needs faithful people. Are you ready to take on this spiritual mission? Now share in the comments. Have you noticed any signs that we are living in a prophetic time? What attitude have you taken toward it? Let us build one another up with testimonies of faith and vigilance. What should we do now? The lion is roaring. Are you listening? Beloved of the Lord, heed this urgent word. The roar we hear does not come from the earth, but from heaven. It is the roar of the Lion of Judah, awakening those who still sleep, shaking the lukewarm, calling the chosen ones to the end time. Today, heaven cries out, but who is listening? The signs are piling up, the heavenly clocks strike 1 minute to spiritual midnight, and are you ready? In Revelation 5:5 it is written, "Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has prevailed." This victory was not just an event of the past. It is an eternal echo crying out from the heavens, reminding the children of light that war is ongoing. It is not a battle of flesh and blood, but of spirits and powers. Do you feel it in your spirit? There is a sacred restlessness pervading the atmosphere. It is time to wake up. Many are living like Noah's day, eating, drinking, marrying, while the ark is closing. Judgment is coming, and with it the need to be sealed, not with human arguments, but with the blood of the Lamb. Where are you? Inside the ark or outside it? Are you among those who mock the warning or among those who tremble at the word? This isn't about religion, it's about a prophetic urgency. The trumpets are already sounding, the winds of the end are intensifying. Nations are in chaos, morality is collapsing, creation groans awaiting the manifestation of God's children. And while the world dances on the edge of the abyss, the Holy Spirit whispers, "Get ready, for the bridegroom is coming." Preparation is not external. It's not about stockpiling food, but about sanctifying oneself. It's not about hiding in physical bunkers, but about dwelling under the shadow of the Almighty. This is the moment of radical consecration, of breaking with hidden sin, of releasing forgiveness, of restoring family altars, of crying out for fresh oil in the lamp, because the wise virgins weren't perfect, but they were vigilant. The lion roars, and with each roar, the angels are activated. Kingdoms are shaken, events are aligned, and you, sleeping church, wake up. It's time to take a stand. You cannot remain neutral when heaven and hell are in conflict over souls. You cannot remain silent when souls are lost. You cannot continue living as if everything continues as before, because it isn't. The Virgin Mary has come again and again, warning with tears, showing the path of conversion. At Fatima, at Garabandal, at Medjugorje, Her messages are not sweet heavenly postcards. They are the cries of a desperate mother. She has said, a punishment is coming if the world does not repent. And what has the world done? It has closed its ears, hardened its heart. But you, child of the kingdom, still have the opportunity to respond. What should you do now? Repent. Weep between the atrium and the altar. Return to your first love. Leave lukewarmness behind. Fast. Pray. Prophesy. Awaken others. There is no longer time to dwell on fleeting things. Those who do not listen now will regret it later. Because the lion's roar is not just a warning, it is a call to spiritual arms. The prophetic clock is about to reach its climax. A great shaking is coming. What is hidden will be revealed. What seemed secure will be shaken. But those who stand firm on the rock will not be shaken. This is not a time of fear, but of burning faith. Those who know their God will rise up and do great things. The lion roars. Are you listening? And now tell me in the comments, what are you doing to prepare yourself spiritually for this prophetic time?